Hello guys, my name's Glurmit, and today I am joined by the Star Wars Dad.
Oh, hey, sorry everybody. Sorry, Glurmit. Hey everybody, how's it going? I was just telling Glurmit I had to reinstall my whole BlueStack, so I'm kind of working on that on the side, and I'm going to stop now so I can give my full attention to you, Herr Glurmit.
Awesome. Right, so today we're going to be going over some key things that new players, probably those of you watching, are doing wrong, or maybe things that you should change to kind of go up the levels in the game. So to begin with, is there anything you just straight up think, okay, new players are doing this wrong?
The number one thing that I focused on, and I've made several videos about this, and we talk about it all the time, is you have to farm executrix for your capital ship. When you get to level 78, you want an executrix fleet with Tarkin at the head that's going to unlock Zeta mats for you. Yeah. And if you aren't doing that, as soon as you hit level 78, you're going to fall behind everybody else. So when you hit level 78, you got to have executrix leveled up to 5 stars, and you need 6 other 5-star ships. So pay attention to that as you go, and make sure you get the executrix up there, because not only that, but it's also the best ship for later. It scales better than any of the other early ships. Late game, maybe home 1 you can talk about, but so that's my number one thing that people do wrong early on is not pay attention to their executrix, not get ready for that level 78 ship ability materials challenge to start getting Zeta mats right away.
So I actually want to bounce on what you say there, and I want to say a lot of accounts I see. I mean, I know you do lots of roster reviews. I do way too many as well. And something I always notice is so many people ignore pilots. And especially with unlocking Zeta mats, you can do it with low star ships, right? You need the stars and the ships to be able to do the mission. But so many people will get there, and it's like, I just can't beat this mission at all, and you just rage. Like, I know that you'll know, and most people watching, if you've ever done the fleet missions, the normal progressive campaign, let's say, for that, there's that node with the TIE fighters. I don't know if you remember that one, where they just come one after another, and if you don't have good pilots, like if they don't have good gear, you're never going to clear it. And it's the most rage-inducing thing ever. And yeah, you're right, we do need to prep for executrix, all of that. But also you need to make sure you're gearing up your pilots. Now we've had gear changes, there's no reason why you can't take your pilots to gear 11, gear 12. It's not as hard as it used to be.
I agree with everything you said wholeheartedly. It's just, not only for Fleet Arena, for free-to-play players, Fleet Arena is pretty difficult to get to the top of that unless you get into Fleet Arena right at the beginning of it. But still, those fleets come in so handy all along the way, and you've got to have those pilots farmed, and that's where I kind of focus on the executrix and having the ships and the pilots ready for that. If you get that ready, then you've got a fleet that can get you through a lot of those Fleet Arena nodes, and so I 100% concur that's a mistake a lot of people make, is you go in there and they're at level like 72 and they haven't touched any of their ships or crew members or anything, and you're like, dude, you are behind already, just a few levels into ships having been opened.
The fleet itself isn't that hard to get the pilots up and running. I mean, you have the bomber, that's a pilotless ship. You then have Vader's ship. Vader, you're going to be gearing up regardless. You now have Iden, right? And Iden ship's relatively early on, and Iden's an easy character to farm. Like, those 3 combined, that's enough. You don't really need a lot more to be dominating with that fleet.
I think that's a little later game, though. You're not going to be able to farm those ships up to 5 stars.
That's true. That's true.
78. Honestly, I'm going to put a video on this today. I just did this. I'm playing a free-to-play account right now just because I wanted to see what it was like with the web store. Then they launched those calendars that, now there's calendars for free-to-play players that launch you ahead like a month in the game. But I just today got to level 78 and did all that, so that's kind of at the front of my brain, but even though it's in front of my brain, people neglect that, and man, you fall behind quickly. If you don't get Merciless Massacre up by the time you hit level 85 for Grand Arena, you're behind.
I think you lead on to the next point there, Zetas. Like, I saw one of your YouTube shorts the other day, where you went through, and I think it was the one where someone had like all Relic 7 or 8 Phoenix. And what I kind of want to go off here is the Zetas on teams like that, right? You see so many times new players will see a big red 1 and think, or exclamation mark or whatever it is on the screen, and they say, I want to apply this. And to be fair, I'm terrible for this. It's the reason why I have a Relic 8 cup, Maybe peer pressure, but Yeah, take the time, research, go watch a video, see if the team is actually worth, a Zeta.
Right.
Yeah,
you talk about those Phoenix Zetas. That team I looked at was like they were all relic 8 and 9. They had all their Zetas. Yep. Now that was a guy that had like 9 million galactic power. He had a little room to do a passion project of his own, But when you're starting the game, when you're at 2, 3, 4, 5 million galactic power, you have got no room for Phoenix Zetas. There, you should not even consider that. But I see other Zetas all the time. I've got other shorts out there. I open up a Darth Vader and it's got the leader Zeta and no escape and not merciless massacre, and I just start going off. I don't want to be mean, but it's like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, agreed.
Or the Grandmaster Yoda leader Zeta. I see a lot of that, and that's a useless Zeta that does nothing for you at any point of the game. So
one thing that I want to recommend anyone watching who's maybe wondering how do you find out what Zetas are good. So the first is to look up. There's every content creator has their guide on what Zetas you should go for. But if you don't want to watch videos, which I don't know why you wouldn't, if you go on swgoh.gg and you can go on your profile, you scroll down and you click Zetas, and it will show you every Zeta you can apply based on your roster, and it shows you the percentage. So you can look and you can see that this character is like 0.01% of all Zetas, and like not even 1% of all Gear 12 of that character. So automatically you can kind of say, okay, this is not a good Zeta. An example is actually Mara Jade. Mara Jade, her Zetas aren't needed for her to be good. They're nice, they're luxury Zetas, but a lot of you may see, oh, Mara Jade's a good character, I must have these Zetas. No, just ignore them. Same with Dark Trooper. Dark Trooper's Zeta is not needed at all. It's just the one where when he uses his special, he gains another stack. You don't need that to win. So I don't know. I get why people make these mistakes, but there are ways to kind of think about it and overcome it.
Yeah, and you'll have time to get a lot of those Zetas down the road. Like a lot of you will probably add the Mara Jade Zeta down the road because you get the Omicron for Territory Wars. It adds another level to her in Territory War for sure. But yeah, I didn't know that tool was out there. You kind of schooled me there a little bit. Right. I talk about swgoh.gg all the time, because it's such a great tool. I think the most recent thing I talked about was pulling up, and what was I looking at the other day? Was it gear? Pull up the gear for it, or I can't remember. I was on a video the other day just saying, hey, look at swgoh.gg for this specific thing. There's so many things you can look at with characters on there, and what you need to do with them, and how you need to gear them, and what gear you need for them. I know what it was. I was looking at mod sets. Yeah. You can go to swgoh.gg, pull up your character, and you can look at the most used mod set on that character, and it'll say, like Luke Skywalker, offense with a tenacity cross. Boom, done. So you can work toward those mod sets because they're popular for a reason, Yeah,
exactly. So I've pulled up the thing I was talking about now, and I'll send you a link later so you can check it out. Okay. So it's saying for all of my characters that I have, I'm currently on my main account missing 31 Zetas. That's it. I have like almost everything, but
that's all.
Yeah, that's all I'm missing. It's crazy, right? Now, out of those Zetas, Grand Inquisitor, his lead, 96% of all Gear 12 Grand Inquisitors have this Zeta. So, but then if I scroll down and I go down to Trench isn't really a good example. He's brand new. Let's go to someone who's a bit older, like Leia. Leia's Zeta, 45% chance to heal, and whenever Leia attacks, she becomes 5% protection. This is only 13% of all Gear 12.
Yeah.
So this is a nice way to kind of look and see, is it actually worth applying?
I see those Leia Zetas all the time. I mean, because people farm the CLS team, and then they just throw the Zetas on Leia and Stormtrooper Han. Now, Stormtrooper Han's is kind of interesting on the right squad. Yeah. And I think with the new Sanastaros stuff. But yeah, people are just throwing Zetas on when they don't have Sanastaros and without thinking about what they're doing.
So you actually brought me straight into the next topic here, which is going to be people who are new to the game. They go on YouTube, they go on Twitch, they start watching someone. It could be you, it could be me, it could be Arnold, it could be anyone, right? And then they try and get those characters as well. Like someone sees Sana and her team is really, really good, but they try and go for it really early on. And the problem with that is if they're your favorite character in a game, I'm not going to sit here and say don't farm them, don't do them. But there's a time and a place. And if you're brand new to the game, your first thought shouldn't be, okay, I need a Sana team by the time I hit 1 million GP, because that's just not, it's not very smart. And I, you know, I see this a lot. You know, I see a lot. I go on like a roster and I review a roster, and there's some weird ones. Like for example, anyone who's watched the stream will know, I did a roster review a couple months ago, and there was this guy, and he was like 8 million GP, but he had all the GLs at gear 11. He had 6 GLs.
No, I saw that roster. I've seen that.
You've seen it as well.
The same roster.
You've seen it as well. You might have done.
Yeah,
he's changed it now.
Yeah,
he's changed it now. But he came on and asked for a roster review from me, and I was like, yeah, you know what, this isn't terrible because you have the GLs. But basically, I kind of hinted that they maybe change it up. In fact, I think one of the mods felt really bad and DM'd the guild leader and basically said, hey, look, this is happening. The guild leader went, I didn't even realize, had a conversation with him, and now he's actually going to relic them. So it's a good outcome.
Yeah, the way I came across that account is somebody just pinged me in Discord and said, hey, I found this account, take a look at it. They might have seen it on your video. I have no idea, but they found it. Yeah. I made a whole video on it, and I think I DM'd their guild leader. It sounds like that all sounds very familiar to me, but yeah, it was crazy. And honestly, if you were on my stream and you had that, I would tell you were doing the wrong. I'm very direct. But we can have fun with it. People like being roasted and having fun. So I don't feel any I don't feel too much pity. And I'm not a mean spirited guy. But yeah, I can tell you that your roster needs a lot of work while doing it. We can do it diplomatically, right?
Out of, just for people that don't know, what GP is your like main account that you play on?
My main account is like 5.3 million, and I'm going to unlock Jedi Master Kenobi like tomorrow in the next couple of days, and that'll be my second GL. Right. And then I'm running a new hyperdrive account where I'm actually doing some pay-to-play stuff on it, and that's running about 2.5 million GP.
Nice. So you're kind of like in that middle area, right? Mm-hmm. Now, my main account is 10.1 mil at the moment, so it's more late game. And I had this conversation with someone yesterday, and this kind of leads into what we've been talking about. When you're in the middle section and below, the game is quite linear in the sense that you kind of pick something to farm, you farm it, that's it, right? But when you're late game, it flips, because you watch someone like who's like 9-10 million GP, maybe more. They're being forced to farm whatever's new. They have to catch on, right? And new people may watch this and say, okay, I need Sana. I need this team. Now, there are some exceptions. I mean, even when Aiden came out, I said Aiden's an exception because she's so good, you know, for new players. But for a lot of you watching, like, for example, Merrin, right? Merrin just got released for Night Sisters. She looks very strong. But I would never recommend someone who's just started again today goes and farms Merrin. You know? And I feel like too many people do that.
You can't chase the meta as a brand new player. And there's just some basic teams that every new account, whether it's a hyperdrive account or whether it's a free-to-play or, you know, very small spending account, there's some basic teams you have to have on your roster to make the game work better for you as you go forward. I mean, I just think of like Geonosians. Yeah. You know, people kind of dump on Geonosians when they get up to Kyber and stuff. I still think they're an effective offensive unit when you get to higher levels of Grand Arena. But you need those Geos on your roster to get into a guild that's doing Geonosis territory battles, so that you can contribute in getting the Watt shards in there. And you get, because getting to that territory battles level gets you all that get to currency that you need to buy the Malevolence Negotiator. Exactly. So if you don't do Geos early on, and maybe if you have some connections in the game, you can get into one of those guilds anyway, but most people need to have those Geos to get into that guild that's moving up, and that's gonna, just getting Geos early on, it's a really good team in Grand Arena, and just otherwise it's a really good team. But as you advance, it's gonna open up all sorts of other stuff for you. Primarily, as I'm thinking, is the current that you get Watt Tambor for it, who is really, really important in the game, and Negotiator Malevolence, who are very important, are starting to fade a little bit as they're going to keep adding these big capital ships, but they're still super important, especially for early game players.
I really do feel like you can just read my mind. Every time you said something, it's leading straight into the next thing. You made a good point about what Tambor. You made a good point about getting geos. And I had a conversation with someone last night. They're 2 million GP, and they said, I'm going to farm JMK. And I say, what guild are you in? And they say, oh, I'm in an ROTE guild. And I say, hold on a second. Get out. You need to go to a GOTB. You can't... So many people think it's good to go to the best, the furthest territory battle first. That's not good. I get skipping Hoth, if you can, maybe skip Hoth. It's still good, but not necessarily the best. Maybe for brand new players, but otherwise I wouldn't worry. But you cannot miss out on Wat Tambor, because if you skip that and you go to farm JMK, and I've done so many roster reviews where someone goes, I'm farming JMK, everything's done. What star levels Wat Tambor? 4 stars. You're still like 10 months away. Like,
and you're spending all your get 3 currency on them, and that is. So I'm going to tell you, I had that exact personal experience. So my new account that I opened in September, I've got good standing in my guild. So my guild leader and officers like, bring it in here. Yeah. We'll have it in this guild and we'll participate. You get tickets every day and everything. But when Rote launched, I did it like for a couple rounds, and I realized I'm sitting here on a 4-star, 4.5-star Watt, and I'm going to have to spend all this currency from Rote on Watt, and it's still going to take me another year to get them. So I took that account out of my guild, and I joined another guild that I'm in right now, where I'm getting 30 Watt shards every month from the Dark Side Geonosis territory battles.
I honestly think that's the number one thing people should take away from this, because JMK is a very good Geo, right? And the one issue of him I'm going to bring up in a minute, but everyone should aspire to have him at some point. Yeah. And you just don't want to miss out on GOTB. And
plus, I'm going to guess what you're going to mention is he needs Cat on the team. Yep. Maybe you weren't, I don't know, but so he needs Commander Ahsoka Tano on the team. Yep. And as a new player, you will have 0 access. Maybe not 0. You could spend crystals and stuff to get her, but you're not really going to have access to her without spending a bunch of money until you get to 4 million, and you can play Proving Grounds. Yep. So Jedi Master Kenobi, he should not be your. I don't think he should. I think Kylo is your first Galactic Legend farm. Yep. If you really want to do the game the right way, and again, like you said earlier, if you have favorite characters and you want to farm, go for it. That's the great thing about the game, is there is no meta required for the game anymore. Back in the day, it used to be you had to get this one team, and if you didn't get it, you're hosed. Now you can farm a bunch of teams and have fun or whatever. But if you want to play the game the most efficient way, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren should be your first Galactic Legend that you go for, whether you rush him off the bat, which I'm fine with, or you do him a little bit down the road. He's much easier to get. He's so good at everything in the game, and that's Jedi Master Kenobi should maybe be your second Galactic Legend, which is going to be in my free-to-play account, but not your first one. It's just a tough road to hoe.
So you are right. I was going to bring up Commander Ahsoka, and that is a big thing because you get JMK first. I mean, he kind of sucks on defense for Cat. Let's be real.
Yeah, right.
But the main thing for me is a lot of people go and watch guides that are from 2 or 3 years ago, and these guides are before the GAC changes. And they're taught, and you remember, we were taught, you have to be lean, you can't have any bloat, it's going to impact matchmaking. And if you follow that, the longer you're not 4 million GP, the longer you're not getting Commander Ahsoka, the longer you're not getting more. And I worked out last night, it was around about, I think, what was it, like 7,000 or 8,000 crystals to do 2 refreshes on Maul, 2 refreshes on Cat each month. No one else. It's too much. Okay. So basically, my advice is if you're new to the game, you should actually not rush, but I feel like you need to be aware of your GP and try and make sure that after a year, after 2 years, you're at 4 million. Because the longer you sit at 3 million, the more time you're wasting, and then your opponents are all going to start getting Cat. In the space of this coming year, the amount of Cats in the game are going to double. And then all of a sudden you're in a Rhodium, you might see a Padme Cat, for example, that's just going to wall you. It's a big thing that a lot of people aren't paying attention to.
Yeah, I agree with that. And 4 million also opens you up to Hard Conquest too, which if you can get 1 crate in Hard Conquest, is better than anything you're getting anywhere else.
That's so true.
So yeah, that 4 million is a magic number. And I remember on my free to play account, I actually did. I had a stream or a video where I think it was a stream. I spent like 20 plus minutes just pumping stuff up. And if you really want to, what I really discovered there is if you really want to bloat your roster to 4 million, upgrade those crew members, the ship captains, the ship pilots, because that it's like I think it's more than double. I think it's like triple galactic power for doing that.
Yeah, so I actually made a video on this about a year ago. And it's going back to swgoh.gg. There is another function on there. If you go to your guild instead of your player, and you go to galactic power differences, you can then see how much GP you're missing out on based on stars, abilities, mods. And what you'll find is a lot of people, you can just slap level 15 mods on everyone. That's like 200k power, just like that. It takes 2 minutes. Honestly, really, the two things you should take away from this is, well, 3 things. One, apparently you can read my mind. The second thing is that you need to use swgoh.gg. And really the main thing is, don't skip Geo. I think that's really the main takeaway, if I'm honest.
My very first free-to-play farming guide was a year and a half ago or whatever, and it was the Geos are on the thumbnail. It's all about Geos. It's, I don't think the game is all about Geos, but you like you said, you cannot skip them. And plus, their ships are pretty easy to get early on in the Galactic War store, in the Fleet Arena store, and I even spent some Get One currency on Sunfac along the way, which has done me pretty well. And that gets you to that first thing I mentioned, level 78 ship ability material, getting those Zeta maps. So I do love the idea of Geos, and now we've had the gear changes. It's not hard to get them to gear 11. It's not hard to go on YouTube, look up a guide, maybe look for my guide, and just go on there and dominate the What Tambor mission. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you're a new player, hopefully these tips help.